for making the time to join us for this webinar this afternoon on monitoring and maximising project management competence. My name is Mike Saville. I'm the Head of Consulting at the ILX Group, and I'll be taking you through the webinar today. So thanks once again for making the time to be with us today. Let's just get ourselves going. I think we're at our scheduled start time now, aren't we? So let's get moving. I have some initial housekeeping notes to share with you. So you can probably see from the little webcam feed that I'm talking. I hope that you can hear me okay and that the audio is coming through clear. There is, I'll direct your attention to this console on the screen, which gives you the opportunity to share chat with me whilst we're going. So if anybody's got any issues with audio that they want to sort of flag up now, just punch them into that chat window and they should appear here. Although saying that, I'm not, apart from making sure that my microphone's switched on, there's not an awful lot I can do. So hopefully it's coming through clearly. If you do have questions as we go, then please use that chat window to fire them in. I'll try and take them in line, and if not, I promise to sweep up at the end and address any questions as they come in. We're going to be taking about 25-30 minutes of your time today to step through the webinar, and if you, as I said, if you do have any questions, fire them in. I would also draw your attention to, well, to hope that you're already sort of following us on all sorts of social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, we tweet, and you can probably find us on Google as well. And if you haven't yet taken the opportunity to track us through those, then please do so. You'll get updates and reminders of stuff that we're up to, or new pieces that we're putting forward, or where we're going to shows or contributing articles, that kind of stuff. Just keep you up to date on what's happening in the ILX world. And before we get into the remainder of the presentation, I'm going to start, if I may, by asking a question to everybody who's attending here. My topic today is, well, there's a couple of things really. There's monitoring project management competence, using project management frameworks to help organizations and individuals to build their project management capability. But in a second, you'll see on the screen that a little poll will appear, and the question I want to ask is to what degree your organization has already used or is using competence frameworks in order to help build capability. Now, some organizations are using the Association for Project Management's framework, which is the one that sits at the heart of the 3CAT, which is the tool that I want to introduce to you today through the webinar. Some PMI flavored organizations have used PMCD. Some organizations will have their own homegrown project management competencies. We work with a number of organizations that have developed their own competence framework to help them to gauge progress in that area. And some organizations will inherit from their human resources department a set of competencies and behaviors which might include some project management elements. As you'll see when the poll comes up on the screen, what I'd like you to do is pick the description that most closely mirrors your organization. So I'll ask Alex to put that poll up now. Okay. So hopefully you've all had an opportunity to pick a response. It's an interesting. We ran the same poll. We did a version of this webinar this morning, and we ran the same poll, and 100% of the respondents said that their organisations weren't currently using a competence framework to help to develop capability, which is relatively small sample size, but still a fascinating insight. They are very much in their infancy, and they're not perhaps as well known as some of the other standards. I'm just seeing some of the results that are coming through at the moment. So we've got 42% of our current audience don't currently assess PM competence. So, well, that's good that more than half of you are doing in some form or other, with a 26% on general assessment too. Which means that if my maths is hasty, there's about 30% of you using one of the defined frameworks, which is good. I'm glad to see that there's that level of familiarity. Okay, so if I move us forward. My first slide is just me. My name is Mike Saville, as I mentioned before. I lead a small team here at ILX working with our clients to help them to develop their project management capability. Now, I've been doing that for about 12 years, and I've been doing it in a number of organizations in different environments and with different drivers. And one of the conclusions that I've come to is that there are that developing capability in an organization is very dependent on a number of competing factors. So the environment in which they're delivering can have a big impact. The frameworks which are being used to deploy the projects, the types of projects that we use, complexity, and of course the ability of individuals and the competence of individuals within the project team to contribute to the delivery of those projects. So I've been doing that in the UK, in Europe, in the Middle East, over in the States, and every experience has strengthened in me the conviction that capability is built up from a vector of a number of aspects. And so one of the things I wanted to do today is introduce a new tool that ILX have brought out, which will help your individuals and project teams to profile their competence, which is one aspect of that capability. And I want to sort of share that with you and demonstrate it for you in a little while. But let's get on to talking, showing what I'm going to talk about. So, as I said, one of the primary objectives here is to introduce the 3CAT tool, Combined Competence and Capability Assessment Tool is the acronym, and it enables an organisation to look at personal competence alongside process capability and other aspects, including, for example, project complexity, and to build up a multi-layered picture of the way in which their current capability. I also, in order to do that, the core framework that's in there is the Association for Project Management's Competence Framework, the 2015 version, and so give a little bit of an overview of that as well for those who aren't so familiar with it, that you'll see how it can be applied to help teams to develop the right sort of level of competence to deliver their projects. Going to have a quick look at how competence assessments can be used to build organizational capability, and open up my screen and take my life in my hands and try and do a live demonstration of the 3CAT tool that I can share with you today. So that's where we're looking to go with this piece. But before we get into it, just a little bit of a reflection. Mentioned before that I'm strongly of the view that competence and capability are developed through a number of different tracks, and our little graphic there will help to sort of give a bit of a feel for my thinking here. We are, as an organisation, I think it's fair to say ILX have championed the use of maturity models in assessing project capability, and we're sort of pretty clear on what the impact can be of modifications to process in terms of delivering successful projects and getting the capability that you need into place. We understand that project complexity will also play a part, and that sometimes your process might be fit for purpose for 70% of your projects, but you need a little bit of extra support for those more unusual beasts that are outside the sort of the centre of the bell curve. That too can have an impact on how you successfully deliver a project. But personal competence is one of the trickier ones to gauge. I mean, for a start, it has an impact on the individual, and it can impact on sensitive considerations such as career trajectory and personal ambition. It's also a very perception-based piece, isn't it? I mean, one person's view of a project might be fantastically successful because they understand all of the objectives, all of the obstacles that had to be overcome, whereas another may see that, well, they seem to crack on and get it done fairly reasonably. It can't have been that difficult. It's hard to be objective about the successful delivery of a project, and we can say, time, cost, quality, and sometimes those things work, but we can all think of projects that didn't do so well, even though they came in on budget and did exactly what everyone thought they were going to do originally. So getting the view of how well a person is managing the project is a tricky piece. We have found that the application of international standards can be a very helpful guide in this case. So this is why we've returned to the Association for Project Management framework, and this is the framework that their competence framework is the one that we've integrated into our 3CAT tool. It gives somebody the opportunity to baseline, whether it's an individual or an organization, to baseline their current state of development using a neutral set of previously agreed competencies, and using a consistent method of assessment, which starts life with a self-assessment, but that can also be developed and enables everybody to map out where they currently are. Okay, and so our 3CAT tool is intended initially to help organisations to address that particularly challenging how do we assess personal competence question, and hopefully, as you'll see, it can be done in a relatively straightforward way. So what does our 3CAT do? It provides a structured self-assessment. So again, there could be a number of factors that could be assessed when looking at the individual competence. So what we've done is we've prescribed it around the 27 core competencies that are in the APM framework. Now, the 3CAT is intended to be a configurable tool. So as you'll see as we go later on, it should be possible to focus in on higher priority pieces if that's where your organisation feels it needs. But the starting point is to use those 27 competencies that are embedded in the best practice standard. What the tool can do is also gives an immediate reveal on the results as well. There's no significant background processing that goes on. It doesn't have to go off for a separate review board or anything like that. You put in your answers, the results come back, and you can call them up instantly. It links. What we've done is we've linked knowledge gaps from a self-assessment into the ILX training, digital training materials. So you've got if you're already subscribed to an ILX portal, then you can map your knowledge gaps in your self-assessment to the digital products, even at the sort of module level, as you see when I demonstrate it later on. So if you need to top up your risk management, you can get access to a number of the modules that are in our portal in order to sort of boost that knowledge gap there. Those of you who've had the chance to look at it in a little bit more detail will know that version 2 of the APM competence framework has mapped out a number of the roles that are in our PPM profession. It's a significant move forward from the version 1, which it replaced last year, in that it started to acknowledge some of the other roles outside of purely a project manager or project director. And by using our 3CAT, you can contrast your current state of development with the target levels identified by the APM in the new framework, which you'll see when I demonstrate it shortly. Also, once you've completed a self-assessment, which perhaps takes no more than, if you're a little bit reflective about it, but it can be done in 20 minutes once you've got the hang of the scoring system, you can immediately see a report which will show where there are shortfalls in your development, or where you need to target in order to reach the next level of your profession. Similarly, if you're in an organisation, or if you're coordinating a project management capability with multiple members in the team, you can look at the distribution of competencies across the team and think about how to raise that capability by targeted development inputs, which again you'll also see when I demonstrate. How's it likely to be used? Well, thinking about a couple of audiences, really. If you're, for example, a director of projects, or you're running a PMO, you've got some PM resource in the team, you can start to address that very difficult perception-based question, which is, how good is my team? Have I got the team that I need to deliver the kind of projects that I've got coming down the pipe at me? Similar but related question: how should I best think about targeting development for my team? Where are the gaps? Where are the competences that we need to develop? Should I think about partnering people together? Should I think about sharing experience? Should I think about coaching and mentoring? These are all issues that we can help to address by completing an assessment using the 3CAT. If you're a 3P professional, if you're a program manager, project manager, and if you're plotting your career trajectory, or if you're thinking about what sort of skills do I need to focus on in order to reach my next step, then the 3CAT assessment can very quickly show you where you are and what you would need to do in the eyes of the Association for Project Management to reach the next step on your progression. You can very quickly take away the output of our 3CAT assessment and factor it into a personal development plan or a training needs analysis. Okay. So before we get into it, just a quick bit of background on the APM competence framework, the second version. There are 27 competencies within the piece, which is a big improvement on version 1, which had 47, which was perhaps too many. And they are split into a couple of broad headings. So there are technical competencies, which would be those such as risk, issue and opportunity management, or project quality management, consolidated planning, requirements gathering. The specific disciplines with a body of knowledge behind them, that one would expect professional project managers to have some experience of applying and some knowledge into the sort of suite of tools that are available to them within that competence. Some of them are more the behavioral pieces, so team management is one of them, leadership is another one, I suppose stakeholder engagement and communication, which possibly cuts across both pieces, but there's a body of knowledge which one would expect a project manager to have some familiarity with, and also so you would expect them to have applied that competence in one or more projects. And the 27 sit there, and those are the ones which have been deemed to be core to the key operation of a project manager or program manager or portfolio manager, or indeed a PMO professional. Which leads me into the roles. In the previous version of the APMCF, the outputs were very clear, but they were mapped to the IPMA grading, so the A for projects director, B for senior project manager, C for project manager, and D for project associate, I think it was. Not the most expressive of outputs, you know, so I'm a B, that's good today, etc. So what they've done with the new version, which is has very useful practical application, I think, is that they have developed 14 separate role profiles. So there are 4 for project manager, 3 each for program and portfolio manager, and 4 for the PMO track. And they have sort of with a certain amount of sort of succession and seniority involved in them. And what we've done is we've integrated those role maps into our 3CAD so that you can, once you've done the assessment, you can see where you sit on the on that sort of developmental curve. So that's made it a lot more straightforward. The version 2, which we're working with in 3CAT now, is much more susceptible to self-assessment, I think, anyway, because you've got an immediate answer, you've got an immediate bit of feedback at the end of the assessment, which means something very precise in terms of, you know, so how you sit again in contrast to those 14 roles that have been mapped out. So it's very accessible, and obviously we've also linked it to sort of training needs, and so you can pull that through and start to focus on your own development plan very quickly. And I suppose the final point to mention is that obviously the association is the recognized voice of project management and the sort of central body in the UK, but is also an affiliate of the IPMA, and so it has a sort of a global presence, and there's some sort of stamp of a professional quality and around the piece, so that we can have some confidence that the role profiles and the mapping activities that have taken place have sort of been conducted by experts in the field and they've engaged with a good proportion of the community in order to develop them and bring them forward, and we can have some confidence in their results. So just to sort of finish it off on the APMCF side, I mentioned that there are sort of the 4 tracks and with individual gradations within them. So you can see that for project manager, there's an entry-level piece, there's an intermediate, advanced, and master going up to the top there, and then the program manager and portfolio manager perhaps understandably don't track an entry level on either of those because we assume a certain amount of experience and familiarity with the competencies in those roles. But the PMO also has those 4 tracks for those who are building a profession within a portfolio management office, for example. The reason for the two little icons at the top there is that our 3CAT is you can access it using an iOS device, so you can look at it on your iPad or on an iPhone, and the Android icon is there to suggest that, so whatever your smartphone, you can crack on and do your self-assessment so while you're on the train and view the results as well. It's very exciting. Right, and the final thing I needed to sort of position before we get into reviewing the product is the framework for scoring. Now, again, this is the framework that the APM have produced, which complements and sits alongside the competence framework, and all of the competencies are scored, and any self-assessment will deploy these sort of 5 levels of scoring on the competence assessment. So and essentially there are those 5 levels, with level 1 being the initial sort of starting point of the journey, and level 5 being sort of recognised as an industry expert. The key sort of turning points probably for application are around independent practice in complex projects. So you think at level 3, the sort of the competent level, we say you would expect someone without supervision to be able to gather some requirements for you in a situation where there was, it were not extraordinarily complex, not too many sort of divergent stakeholders with working within a known technology, for example, that kind of piece. Whereas for up at the top, when you're thinking about sort of 5, the expert level, here's where we're talking about the ability that you're so well versed in a competence that you not only are you familiar with the sort of the key elements of it, but you can review it and optimize and come up with alternatives and innovate different solutions in situations of quite demanding complexity. And you might be the sort of the go-to person in the organization for commentary on that competence. So those 5 levels are the key to the assessment. And I think once again, rather than the previous version which had the IPMAs A to D levels, these seem very straightforward and easy to plot your own experience against. And I think it's a further development that I'm very pleased to see. Right. Okay, so now this is the exciting for me bit where I try and actually make this happen live during the webinar. So I'm just going to open up now the our 3CAT tool and do what I can to log in. And do that. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, there we go. What a relief. So obviously, once one logs into the 3CAT tool, you get the opportunity to review as a single user your self-assessment. So I'm going to go on to the self-assessment piece and review it. And it starts at the beginning. So as you can see, this is competence number 1, which turns out to be ethics, compliance, and professionalism. It contains a short description of what the competence would be, and gives a bit of context in the introduction piece so that you can then start to reflect on your application of that particular competence, so ethics, compliance, and professionalism. And if you want to review that, you can see that currently we've got 2 selected there, which relates to the practice level, has working knowledge of and can demonstrate the competence. But if you thought, well, maybe that's a bit modest for me, I'll go for competent. Then we immediately get the definition, which is comprehensive knowledge of the competence in situations of limited complexity. And then for application, which is your experience of applying that competence, once again, you've got the 1 to 5 grading. And if you select 4, for example, you can get the proficient. Just reminds you of the definition, so you can quickly get into a sense of where you would sit on the development curve. And once we've comfortable with that reflects our current state of development, you simply submit the answer and it takes you into the next competence, which is, as it turns out, team management, which I'm going to decide I'm extremely knowledgeable about and have only a certain amount of application experience, which I do simply by clicking the buttons. And should I feel that I need to add a comment, such as not really familiar with this competence or similar, I can simply track them into the comments box at the bottom and submit the answer, and then that gets bundled in with the assessment. And I don't want to take you through all 27 of the competencies at this point, but you can see how it works. We've called it number 3, conflict management, and that quickly gives us the opportunity to set a self-assessment score and submit the answers. And we can keep on doing that, and you can see how quickly one could go through and develop a full self-assessment at the end. Now, if I go back to the homepage, I can now view my results, because this is an assessment that's already been completed. So simply by viewing the results, I can call up a report that shows me for contrasting knowledge and application scores for each of the 27 competencies. So you can see I've got a little mouse over there that'll show me knowledge is 3 and application is 4 for the first of the competencies. And you can see some of them are tracking, like schedule management, for example, knowledge 2, application 1, and you can see how that sort of curve emerges. And if I scroll down to the bottom, it shows them all instantly, and I can sort of throw that out the printer and click print, and I'll have a paper record of what I've done, a quick reminder of what the 5 levels mean in terms of knowledge and application. And that's helpful. But what I'd really like to do is understand how to progress my career here. So I'm thinking, maybe have I got what it takes to be a project manager of intermediate ability? So I'll do that, and simply by selecting that from the drop-down box, I get the little bit of description of what is considered to be the intermediate level of project manager. So limited complexity, and I've demonstrated the corresponding level of experience in addition to the ability to apply project management knowledge. it says there. And instantly I can see where the gaps are in my development. So I can see that my knowledge of the leadership competence is tracking has a gap of 1 below. So I've assessed myself at 2 and I need a 3. And similarly for solutions development, I've got a gap in my knowledge and my experience. And as I can quickly eyeball it by going down the line and seeing where those gaps are and where I need to do to step it up. And what we've also got here is if I have access to the ILX digital training products, then I've also got at a module level some suggested reading. So some further study that I can take away and use to sort of supplement my knowledge on this piece. Clearly, we can't give you a digital training that'll help with experience of applying the competencies, but we can certainly help to fill up any knowledge gaps that you might have in reaching your target. So, and just to sort of round it out, if I was going for a master level project manager, then once again I'd expect to see, yeah, I can see considerably more red in here because the expectation at that level is higher once again. But it maps it out very quickly, and I can see where I need to focus my development energy in. So that's the personal side of the assessment. Now, if I log in and do an administrative overview, hopefully this will work. Yeah. So if I log into this one now, so I'm logged in as an admin user. You can see what a list of users here, but what I'd really like to do is look at all of the statistics. So this is if I'm in the head of projects or a project director role, and I want to look at the distribution of capability across all of my team. What I can do is call up the results very quickly, and what I see initially is a sort of heat map that looks at the average scores for each individual and also the averages across individuals in particular competencies. So I can eyeball down at the bottom here. We can look at there's competence number 5 is only tracking at 2.4, which is probably lower across the trend than some of the others. So I can look at knowledge for competence number 5, and it turns out to be procurement. I click procurement and I get an instant breakdown of the nature of the responses that people have given in the self-assessment. So now this is for a pool of 16 correspondents, so the data is interesting, but it isn't perhaps as rich as it could be if you had a pool of say 150 in there, which would probably be the average size for a self-assessment. But we've got a number of responses mapped out on the chart here, so we can see what the core of them were. So we've got one outlier there with a knowledge of 4 and an application of 3, but the rest is sitting down here in this slightly lower area, so we can see how the distribution and the skew of those knowledge and application scores sit in there. So we can instantly get back into drilling down into that capability. Now, on top of that, we can, just as we could do for individuals, we can select a particular role profile. Doing that will immediately give us a heat map for how close we are or how far we are away. In this case, of having a full team of master level project managers. You can see there's quite a lot of red involved in that, and we can see that. So, for example, on competence 14, we've got a full house of reds all the way down the piece, and look at that. Consolidated planning appears to be the problem area there. But you can immediately drill down and see what the responses would have been. To see how that picture has emerged. But if we were to take, I don't know, project manager intermediate, we find a lot more green involved in that piece. And so obviously the application piece can show us where there's a short flow experience, and so this is where we start to think about buddying, and we start to think about coaching and mentoring and helping people to acquire experience by whilst also emulating the behaviours of a more experienced colleague. Okay, so that's a quick insight into what the 3CAT can do for us. So what I want to share with you a way in which you could apply an assessment like that and help that to build capability into a larger piece. So I think I mentioned before, it's the APM framework starts life with 27 sort of competencies equally distributed across it. The 3CAT is a configurable tool, and so one thing we can do is decide that if your organization wants to focus on a particular set number of those competencies, then they can excuse me, then you can edit those down and determine which are the ones that are going to be the more higher priority for you. Once you've selected the ones that you want to make the highest priority, highest impact in your competence mapping assessment, you can then review the scoring model, and that will give you the idea of which of the, whether or not you want to stick with the 5 levels that the APM have created, or if there is a maybe there are intermediary levels or extra expressivity that you want to include in the assessment, and that's something that we can accommodate through the 3CAT piece. As we mentioned in the scoring, the elements of complexity are important in that, and so there can be, you might want to give examples of what in your organization would be considered a complex piece, what might be considered a non-complex piece, to help with that scoring around the level 3 and 4 assessments. And then also perhaps to sit with one of the individuals on your team who you might expect to come out with a relatively high score on that self-assessment, and use that as a way of sort of contextualizing the assessment for all of their colleagues, so that we understand what good looks like in terms of the assessment. From there we can get into the actual self-assessment, so run that piece once you've designed it and put the communications around it and brought it in. And then clearly, as it's only a self-assessment, one of the areas we might want to sort of build on is validating that self-assessment. And so, because introducing an element of sort of 360 assessment into it, or at least some feedback from line manager or possibly from external subject matter experts to come in and validate that self-assessment by understanding what the evidence was with which you arrived at your conclusions. And then once you've got a piece that you're comfortable with, you can baseline that capability, and you've got a firm basis on which to either start to drive individual development plans and or to put together an improvement program that will address your knowledge gaps and start to bring the capability into line with what you need it to be in order to deliver the kind of projects that you have on your in your portfolio today. And so that's around the developer piece, and we can sort of start to sort of set individual targets for development through sort of development planning. We can coordinate some training inputs and some development inputs to ensure that people have the practical tools to apply those competencies and gain experience as they need it. And as noted before, we've come up with an experiential approach to ensure that you get the opportunity to independently practice those competencies in situations of increasingly demanding complexity. Okay, so let's try and move that on a bit. So in conclusion, a tool like the 3CAT can help you to achieve a number of objectives, but it can certainly give you a basis for development for your teams, and also for your organizational capability as well, because if personal competence is one of those vectors of the organizational capability, it gives us a way to put a neutral and externally devised framework around your own team, so that we can start to map where their capability is and build from there. It will of course highlight organizational issues if you have trends in that personal competence assessment. If the team collectively have a blank spot, there's it will quickly come up, or a lower performing area will quickly come up in the assessment. It also gives us a key focus for how we develop our teams as well, because there are, so for example, some of the softer skills will require a different sort of input. If we're looking to raise team management and leadership skills, that requires a different input from somebody coming in and running a classroom course on scheduling, for example, because the two have quite different educational approaches, and we'll need a different sort of a setup in order to make them work. But once we have these sorts of inputs available, we can start to build a sequence that will help us to achieve the objectives that we want to put into place. And if you are sort of building that transformational kind of program, then one of the things we'll need to do is understand the current distribution of competence and give you sort of as-is capability, so that you can then build a plan that will take you on the trajectory that you want to follow in order to reach the level of delivery that's your target for your organization over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say. Pretty much, and I apologize if that's been a little bit one way traffic, but I don't know if anybody has any questions that they want to raise at the moment, and we can, if you can use the chat window to sort of fire them in. Okay, as far as I can see, there are no questions coming in as yet. So, if you do have questions that you want to fire into us subsequently, I'll pull up the next screen. We've got a number of contacts available there. You can use the contact us at ILX Group email if you want to fire some stuff in. You can write to me directly. I'm mike.saville@ilxgroup.com. Or you can pick up the phone and give us a call if you wanted to talk through or organise any sort of demonstrations of the 3CAT or any of our other services. But if there are no further questions, then what I'll do is I'll thank you very much indeed for your time. Hang on, ooh, just in time. What are some of the implications of not benchmarking your PMO? Well, I guess one of the things that you'll do is you'll be reliant on perception. So if that's not necessarily a terrible thing to happen, but it's perfectly possible for stakeholders to have disagreements about what the competence and capability of the PMO might be. And if you're looking to get a neutral baseline in place that says, according to the Association for Project Management, let's say, in affiliate of the IPMA, this is the distribution of our capability. This is what we're competent at. Okay, then you can very quickly move forward to a sort of grown-up conversation about what it is, rather than relying on a sort of the perception of the project was this, but what the mitigating factors were that kind of discussion. So it gives you a neutral baseline from which to develop and which to lead sort of development questions. And I'm staring at the screen, but. What kind of costs are typical? Well, the reason they're not on the site is because I guess it's rather price on application. It sounds like a bit of a dodge of the question, but as I'm sure you can imagine, there's quite a different feel between an individual who wants to do a personal competence assessment and a project organisation that has 200 project managers that they want to put through the assessment. And so there are some setup costs that are associated with both of those, but they're of a different scale. And for an organisational assessment, then we would include an element of analysis as an option that will probably sit on top of the initial analysis that I've been able to demonstrate for you today. But to give you a clue, I mean, we ran a piece for an organisation with 15 project managers in that bit of their PM the other day, and the cost would have been around £2,000 UK. The slides will be available, I believe, and there is a recording that will be made available to everybody who's subscribed to the webinar today. Okay. If assuming there are no further questions, then, as I said before, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for joining us today and for your patience, and I hope you found it to be useful input, and hope we get the opportunity to discuss it all again at some point. So thanks very much indeed for your time.